I've been watching tons of Marvel shows for my top 10 Marvel shows video, and I finally got to the most loved Spider-Man show, so yeah, let's review it. Starting with obviously the positives, I think one of the greatest things about this show is Peter balancing his life as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, which is normally what the character is all about, to be honest, because he has consequences for being Spider-Man. There's times where what he does is there's consequential actions for being on both sides, and it explores why he is the way he is, why he is Spider-Man. In fact, he almost drinks this potion that is gonna change him. He'll be normal again, and he decides not to. And that's what makes the characters, that's what makes every superhero so interesting, why they are the way they are exactly. And this show explores that in a nice way, in an elegant way as well. Also, I absolutely love all the characters in this show. MJ actually has a personality here. I didn't hate her in the Raimi trilogy, but she definitely didn't have much of a personality. But in here, she is full of personality, and it's just enjoyable to see with Peter and react with other characters, to be honest. Flash does act a lot like the classic shows that you would expect him from, the older Spider-Man shows and that sort of stuff. And I think it works in a way, to be honest, with the show. I've heard some people complain he's too goofy. Maybe I can kind of see that, but it works for me, to be honest. For the most part, shockingly enough, the show takes its time, even though it only has 26 episodes and 20 minutes. Sometimes it can feel kind of rushed, like Liz getting back with Peter. That definitely was rushed. But the thing is, with this show, it doesn't really... With the show, though, that doesn't really happen, to be honest. It for the most part, because for the most part in the show, they take their time and they set up things. Like with Brock, we see him as this great likable character, and then we see him go as Venom, and it's even more heartbreaking. While in the other ones, he's a lot more unlikable, but in this one, he's probably the most likable he's ever been, to be honest, and that is just absolutely outstanding. And then we see Harry Osborn as he's trying to live up to his father's expectations, and we see the route he's going into. It takes these comic storylines and fits it in a cartoon format, in a Saturday morning cartoon format that works oddly well. And the fact that I'm obviously showing clips on the screen, but it doesn't look like a show that would take this much time and have this much effort to do all these things so well, because it just doesn't look like it. When I looked at because normally you can tell if a show's great or not by these by the designs, and by these designs I'm like, I don't know if I like this show. And then when you look at it, it's amazing. And the simplistic designs work in a nice way, to be honest. It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon type design, and it really does work, actually. J. Jonah Jameson in this show is a riot. Every time he's in it, I'm just laughing my socks off because he's yelling at Peter Parker and stuff. It's just so funny. If you watch the show, you know what I mean. And they take the thing is, they're somehow able to, in just 20 minutes, take Peter Parker's life, set up a villain, and do this only for 26 episodes, and for the most part, do a fantastic job with that. And I think that's what makes this show so well done. It makes it so elegant, and just a brilliant show overall, to be honest. It's hard to really convey what makes this show so great, and it's hard to really explain to people. When you look at it on the outside, you just see, this is the show you're talking about? That's what it feels like. And at the beginning of the show, you think, Peter Parker thinks, oh, everything's going to change, and then he realizes that just because he's Spider-Man doesn't mean that his problems as Peter Parker are resolved, actually. And that battle with Venom and Peter Parker in his mind, the way they do it so creatively, is brilliant, actually, because we don't get as much stuff with Uncle Ben or flashbacks from Uncle Ben in the show until this episode, and we see how important Uncle Ben was to him in this episode, and that works very well, actually. And the thing is, for the first couple episodes, I actually compared it to the Raimi movies, but to be honest, it's nothing like the Raimi movies at all, and I think that's also what makes it so great, is that it's its own thing, but takes these comic book storylines from all these comic book storylines and somehow blends them to create one tone, because you have Dr. Octopus is pretty cartoony, to be honest, if we're looking at the design and everything. And then you have Venom, who is a lot darker, a lot grittier, and they somehow blend these together to make a very consistent kids' morning cartoon. And while I'm just saying this, for a lot of you it sounds bonkers. But it works so well because the writers care, the animators care, the director of this show cares. They care about the show, and that's what makes it so special. Now continuing with the negatives. To be honest, I don't have many negatives with this TV show. I think one of the main ones I have is it ended too early. Now, I know it was the copyright issues and they didn't just forcefully cancel it. I know it has nothing to do with the writers or the animators and it wasn't their fault at all. But it still ended on a very unsatisfying note, and I know not everything has to be a Hollywood ending and it can be dark. Spider-Man 3, I love that movie and it has a dark ending. But there's so many plot lines that feel undeveloped because they didn't go on for a third season, and I know it is not their fault. I'm not blaming anyone whatsoever for this at all, except for Disney. I know they were just trying to get the copyright, so it's not really technically their fault at all. It was just kind of a miscommunication with everything, and then we lost the Spectacular Spider-Man, but yeah, I still am sad that it didn't get another season. Also, sometimes things feel rushed because, once again, it is a 20-minute episodic Saturday morning cartoon, so sometimes things feel a bit rushed and they could develop a couple things a little bit more, but those are very much yeah, the fact that I wish it had a third season, I know it's not their fault, but it's still just an issue I have with this show when it ends. But yeah, I still really love this show. I highly recommend it if you're a Spider-Man fan. Definitely go watch this. If you have Surfshark, it's on Canadian Netflix. Go watch it over there. But yeah, I recommend this for every Spider-Man fan and just everyone that's a comic book fan in general. Watch this. You will love it. That is my video. I'll see you guys in the next one.